So, welcome to the second session of or teaching of the Hell of Jezebel, the Prophet Slayer. I'm Zakiya Monique, and today we're going to go a little deeper into our teachings. But one of the things that I want to say today, and if this is your first series with me, we have done a couple other series. Well, actually, I think we've only done one series, but I did some other teachings. But feel free to go back on the YouTube page and watch what you've missed. But one of the things that I want to tell you is we have to be very careful about being casual about the word of God, right? Because sometimes we're like, oh, I could just watch that later. But you don't understand that may be the very word that's an answer to your prayers right now. That may be the very word that will prompt you or propel you into action right now. That may be the very word that God is sending you for a warning about what's going on in your life right now. So if you feel led to or prompted to listen to a teaching or to hear something, don't just be casual about the word of God, because God is using his word to get us to where he needs us to go. He's using his word to deliver us. He's using his word to encourage us. He's using his word in many different ways. And if we're casual about it, saying, oh, I can listen to it later because she got the channel, so I can listen to it later. But don't be casual about it. If you feel that prompting to go and listen to it, or if you feel that prompting, go do it, because it may be what they call it, a kairos moment. It may be a moment where that word applies to your life right now, and he's telling you what to do, and he's giving you instruction right now. But if you're casual about it and you just kind of, oh well, you may miss exactly what you're praying for. So I'm not just saying that about my channel, please. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying about the word of God, period. Okay, so if you feel prompted to read something, if you feel prompted to listen to something or whatever, do it. Do it. All right. So getting into our second lesson on recognizing Jezebel. Okay, this is the sub part. The whole series is the Hell of Jezebel, the Prophet Slayer, but we're looking at how to recognize Jezebel. And in order to expose the Jezebel spirit, we have to recognize it. So in order to even expose it or even to deal with it, we have to recognize it. And part of the reason why we are so defeated in the churches, we are so defeated in the community, is because we don't recognize it. We don't recognize it. We don't recognize it. So how do you prepare for an enemy that you know nothing about? If you ever watch some of the basketball teams, especially like the college teams, some of those college teams, they make them sit and watch the team that they're going against the next week. They'll make them sit and watch their plays. They'll make them sit and watch exactly what happens with those college team players, so that they know how to prepare for him. They're like, he always go to his left, so make sure you go to the left when you go to your right when he's dealing with it, because he's gonna go to his left, which is your right. But you study your enemy. Many times we don't know the enemy. I was talking with my mother yesterday, who's teaching a lesson today, and I asked her a question. I said, what are the three things that the enemy does? And I was telling her the three ways that the enemy comes to do three things. Okay, so the enemy comes in three ways to do three things: lust of the eye, lust of the flesh, pride of life. Those are the three ways. Everything he does goes up under those three things in order for him to kill, steal, and destroy. So there's nothing new that he's going to do that don't fall up under those three categories: lust of the eye, lust of the flesh, pride of life. Okay, not everything gonna fall up under them three, so that he can do those three things: kill, steal, and destroy. It ain't nothing new. But if you don't know your opponent, if you don't know your enemy, and many times fear will cause us to not want to know about the enemy, not want to know about Satan, not want to know about him, because we've been taught that he's this funny looking thing with a pitchfork and horns, and he's ugly, and we're scared. And because of that, we don't learn about our adversary. And when we don't learn about our adversary, we get demolished. We get defeated. He kill us, steal, and destroy from us, because we don't know what to look for. We don't know our adversary. We don't know how he comes. We don't know what he's doing. And so when you start to know what to expect, you know how to prepare. When you know what to expect, you know how to speak to it. When you know what to expect, you know what to pray for. Okay, so in order to expose it, to deal with it, we got to recognize it. And to better recognize the spirit, over the next week or so, I gather, listen, I'm just at the Lord hijacked my whole stuff today. So my plans are for us to parallel the traits of Jezebel to Jezebel herself and some of the things she did. So that's my plan. We'll see how my plan go, okay? But many try to understand the spirit without knowing what the person was. You know, that's almost like trying to understand what God is saying without understanding the attributes of God. Right? So we're going to look at who she was as a person, and we're going to look at the traits that are still prevalent today. Okay? And we must also understand that Jezebel is not restricted to women. Okay? It's not restricted to women. And it can show itself in different degrees. This is also why I believe we miss it. It's because sometimes it's more extreme in some than it is others. You know, Jezebel is often compared to or very synonymous with or sometimes similar to narcissism, right? And because a person is not an extreme narcissist, we think they're not at all. No, that's not true. Okay, before it gets extreme, it has to be how much? A little bit, right? It happens subtly. So, you know, a little rejection at a time. The seed of narcissism is often rejection, abandonment, trauma, things like that. So those things didn't just happen at one day and then it just all of a sudden. No, it happens a little bit at a time. And so in us, we have to be careful that we don't allow these things to happen a little bit at a time. Okay, so just because it's extreme in some and less in others, don't let us think that, oh, it's not prevalent at all in me because, you know, I don't do all of that stuff. Well, do you do some of that stuff, though? Because you could very well be on your way. All right. So this series is not only for equipping us to recognize Jezebel and others, but we also should be listening for the parts of her that we have allowed to reside in us. I'm going to say that again because that's tough. That's tough to hear. That's tough to hear. Because when we said Jezebel, we was talking about the lady at church. We was not talking about ourselves, okay? This series should not only equip us to recognize Jezebel and others, because many of us got church neck. Y'all know what church neck is. Somebody come in late and everybody turn their head to see who it is. The pastor say something about, you know, something tough and everybody turn their head to talk about somebody else. Church neck. This series should not only equip us to recognize Jezebel and others, but we should be listening for the parts of her that we have allowed to reside in us. Because let's be clear, the minute that you think you're above it is the minute that you are probably captured by it. In my teachings, I typically say we and us. You know why? Not to declare or dictate things over my life, but to simply say that I'm not above it. It happens to the best of them. There was a time, and I thank God for his deliverance, but there was a time that if you didn't think like I thought, you were stupid and you were wrong. But through a deliverance process, God has taught me to allow people to have the freedom to think like they want to think. Now, when you spill over here and try to tell me that's what I got to do, hold on. Hold on. That's when I'm going to have to say, hold up, hold tight. But if you feel like this is what it is for you, this is why I don't force people to believe in my God. Some people are in my community. One young lady in my community didn't believe in God. She said, I'm spiritual, but I don't believe in God. And guess what? Now she's asking me for scriptures. Let people be who they are. Pray for them and keep it moving. But I had to learn that. And it was a great freedom because I was fighting and arguing with everybody because they didn't believe what I believed. Not realizing that I was the one that was often closed-minded. Now, I'm not going to tell you we should be open-minded to everything, everything or everybody, but oftentimes it was me that was short-sighted. Oftentimes it was me that was closed, that had tunnel vision. It was me. But the whole time I'm arguing with them because they don't believe like I believe. That was very arrogant of me. And I had to learn to acquiesce to God's way and say, oh, okay, well, one of us going to see the light when, and keep it moving. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some things that I will stand very firmly on, and I ain't perfect by far. So I'm not saying that to say that, oh, I'm not, I don't do that anymore. No. However, because I allow God to take me through a process, I allow him to heal the things in me that felt like I had to be right. I don't got to be right about what affects your life. I sure don't. And it took the offense and defense out. See, in many of our relationships, what we don't understand is we're not doing well with communicating simply because we're playing the offense-defense game. And see, what God has recently taught me is how to opt out the game altogether. I go sit on the bench, or I'll leave the game. Bye. See, offense, defense. I was talking to somebody the other day because I don't really watch sports a lot. I used to watch sports when I was younger, but I don't watch sports a lot. But I was asking a person a question that watched a lot of sports. I said, when the offense of one team comes, don't the defense of the other team come? They say, yeah. And that's exactly how it is when you're dealing with somebody that has a lot of pain and abandonment and rejection in their hearts. Is the minute that you talk to them, they hear through the ears of offense. They see through the eyes of pain. They hear through the eyes of pain and see through the eyes of offense. It's interchangeable. And so the minute that you say something to them, they immediately get what? Offended. And then they speak from a place of defense. So when the offense hits your heart, then the defense comes out your mouth. So now I'm going to defend the foolishness because I'm offended that you said something to me. And the truth of the matter is, I know you're right, but it's really you I got a problem with. I'm pissed about you. Now, sometimes it's the way we said it and the tone. We could do a little bit better. But if we remove the tone, if we remove all the other stuff and we just ask ourselves, are they right about what they're saying? Sometimes they are. Sometimes they are. And so we have to be very careful that we're not looking at everybody else and saying, oh, yeah, the Jezebel spirit in her. Where is it in you? Is it in you? That's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about where is it in me? Because I want her out of here. I don't want her in me. I don't want no parts of Jezebel, because the more of Jezebel you have, the less of God you have. See, Jezebel wasn't the type that allowed you to do your thing. No, you was going to do her thing or you wasn't going to have no thing. Okay? And so we want to get into Jezebel. So like I said, we're going to, with hopes, we'll see what the Lord say. In this series, we're going to follow the path of, number one, understanding Jezebel's lineage, which we did last week. So if you didn't watch that, catch that. Which allows us to have a better understanding of, number two, what and who she worshipped. I heard a man say that when you recognize what drives a person, you know what the person worships or who the person worships. So when you see money driving them, they serve mammon, because the Bible says you can't serve God and mammon. Mammon is money. Okay, so when you see what drives them, then you know who they worship. And then number three, understanding of the spirit that she left, quote unquote, left behind, and its strength, how strong it was. Okay, so those are the things that we hope to accomplish in this series. And so last week we covered her lineage and foundation, as well as reviewing a bit about what worship to Baal meant. Okay, and so the scriptures we're going to talk about this week is, we'll do a quick recap of 1 Kings 16, and then we're going to get into 17 and 19, and that's where God hijacked hijacked my lesson, is in 17. So you'll know a little bit about that in just a second. So the foundation, when it came to the worship of Baal, this is what we talked about last week. It was sensuality, orgies and open sexual acts, prostitution, human sacrificing, cannibalism, self-mutilation. See, people tend to think, we all, because it was me too. That's why it ain't just, I'm part of people. I'm people. If people is me, okay? I was one of them too. I say me. When they say you worship other gods or you worship Baal, what did I envision? My mind said you were bowing to another god. That's what I thought, that you were bowing to a graven image. And I'm not saying that that's not, what happened, but what I am saying is that's not all that happened. See, I didn't realize that this is all the stuff that they had to do to worship Baal. I was like, wait, what? When I went into studies and all of that and found out this is wait. Self-mutilation, cannibalism, hold up, human sacrifice, and the human sacrifice was often children. Wait. And as I talked about last week, this was because they wanted crops to grow. Wait, hold up. And now, wait. So you about to go do all this stuff, sometimes in the temple that y'all worshiped in, with hopes that next year your crops would grow. Oh, okay. That's a whole lot. But we also have to keep in mind what crops meant to them. Because at first I was like, baby sis wouldn't have not a grain, not a piece of corn. I wouldn't have a jack. But then I had to think crops for them, like what, no Sam's Club, no Walmart, no Kroger. So I had to stop and think what crops meant to them and their livelihood, right? Because you can't have cattle and livestock, what they gonna eat? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, they can graze grass, but you got to feed them some other things too, right? Then what were the people gonna eat? Like I said, it wasn't no run up to Kroger. Like I'm not a gardener, right? I'm not. And I said, Lord, if you want me to, if you want me to grow my own stuff, help. Because sis don't have a green thumb. I think I got an orange thumb. Like I kill 2-piece lilies, okay? So I mean, can you just imagine you got all this land and then no crops will grow? You know what I'm saying? And so you gotta, where you going? What you gonna do? But did it mean enough for you to turn your back on God because you like, well, let me find another way. Let me figure it out. This is what figuring it out looks like. I don't have enough to pay a bill, so I'm gonna call him and I gonna sleep with him. But he can, give me the money for the bill. Ain't that prostitution? It may not have been a forward contract of prostitution, but by golly, it was prostitution. We may not think we sacrifice our children, but when we many people, especially, when I looked at the whole R. Kelly situation, many of them took their children, their 16-year-old daughters, to the concert of a man that knowingly, quote unquote, raped a 14-year-old girl, or knowingly had sex with a girl that was 14 and knowingly loves young girls. So you took her there, dangle her in his face, let the little girl go backstage with him, and then got on TV and said he took our daughter. I don't understand why. What's going on? The 14-year-old girl that he was sleeping with in the video, her father was the bass player. So y'all telling me y'all didn't know? Or did you see dollar signs and say, well, she could go with him? we may find it hard to believe, but it's people out here like that will give those kids up, that will have those kids being little John Benet Ramses all in these contests. Why? Because that's going to make us some money and that's going to get us a better life. So human sacrifice might look a little different now, but it's still going on. Prostitution might look a little different now, but it's still going on. Cannibalism might look a little different now, but it's going on. Self-mutilation might look a little different now, but it's still going on. And oh, baby, the orgies look the same, okay? The orgies and the open sexual acts is even worse. Sensuality, all of that, is still going on, but we don't call it the worship of Baal. We call them freedom of expression. Freedom, I have the right. I have the right. And you do, and we do, and I do. God said, I set before you this day, life or death. Choose life now. I'm gonna tell you what to choose. See, I like God when it comes to him telling you up front, because he'll tell you what to do. So he give you the choice, then he tell you this is the best choice for you now. I set before you life and death. Choose life that you and your descendants may live. And for some reason, we tend to think that if we don't choose life, that we choosing death. We think, no, God wouldn't do that. Listen, God, just like God is a God of peace, God is a God of war. Just like God is a lamb, he's a lion. So we have to understand the attributes of who we're dealing with to know not to play with them. See, it should be just enough for us to know what he's done for us in our lives to know not to play with him. But when you know his attributes, you know not to play with him, because you don't know when the last time may be that he give you that choice between life or death. And he might just say, okay, I'm going to take my hands off you. Goodbye. We don't want to talk about that type of stuff. We don't want to talk about, oh, no, God wouldn't do that. God is a ATM type God. God is a giver. He is, but he's also the one who took his spirit away from who? Saul. For disobedience. Saul had a choice. God gave him a command, told him what to do. He had a choice. He made the choice, and that happened to be the straw for God. We don't know when it's the straw, so we can't keep playing in his face. We don't know when he may say, okay, I have had enough. He is long suffering, but we don't know what that means. And I dare not, I'll talk about me. I dare not keep playing in your face and tell you, God, give me one more chance, I promise. No, because you don't know. You don't know. And so this is what some of the worship of Baal required. Now, let's see. I don't even know where I was in my notes. That wasn't none of that in my notes. Okay. So, okay, right on point. Okay, so last week we covered her lineage and her foundation, as well as reviewed a bit of what worship to Baal required. That's what we just saw on the previous screen. But then we also looked at the time that she and Ahab came to power and showed how the leadership was in disarray. These were all the kings just in the 16th chapter. Just in the 16th chapter, these were the kings of Israel. Okay, that's a whole lot going on. And if you want to know what happened through each of them, I went through each of them last week, so you can check that out. But what I wanted to say, the reason why I want to bring this out is because Ahab came to power and showed how the leadership was Ahab came to power at a time where it was the perfect time for evil to slip in, because it was so much going on. It was so much chaos. So much chaos. He came to power at a time when it was easy for the kingdom of darkness to come in and get in and take over. Think about it. The enemy strikes at our weakest moments in the strongest ways. He hits our minds when we first wake up in the morning. Why? We ain't even put our feet to the ground yet. We ain't, got our calibration. Some of us still say, hey, we got to sit on the side of the bed and warm up like an old Buick. We ain't figured nothing out. You know what I'm saying? And he like, good, I can strike right now. Because if I catch her right now, I can rule her day. When we're stressed and frustrated, because we're so apt to just say what we're going to say when we're in the middle of emotions. I'm tired of this, God. You must not be there. You was doing, God. Where are you? Ain't no God. When we're saddened and feel rejected. When we're in a state of confusion. It's easy to strike. They were in a state of confusion, okay? 5 kings in one chapter of the book. Dang. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that, years passed through, but it was happening. So it wasn't even years that passed through Zimri. Zimri was the king for 7 days. Off the top of my head, Eli was for 2 years. So Eli was 2 years. Zimri was 7 days. Okay. So, just looking at that, all of these wasn't no years passing through them. It was just all chaos. And then they was going to war and all this type of stuff. And it was a lot going on. And when we have a lot going on, if we do not quiet ourselves, if we do not take the time to sit still and say, Lord, what are you saying? Lord, what is going on? If we do not sit still, that's the perfect time for the enemy to come in. I'm telling you what I know. I'm telling you what I know. Sometimes we'll get so busy doing a good thing. It ain't a God thing. We do good things, and we so busy that we miss the stuff that God really wants us to do. That's why when they say, it ain't enough hours in a day. Yes, it is. It's 24 of them. He knew exactly what he was doing when he made it. It's enough hours in a day. It's just too much on your plate. And you got to ask yourself, who put this here? Because depending on who put this on the plate, I'm not eating that. See, at my job, I'm very finicky about certain things, right? I'm not no germaphobe or nothing like that, but I'm very finicky about certain things. And there's this one girl who comes to the job, and I pay attention to her, how she functions. I pay attention. I ain't trying to talk about her, but her feet. I'm a feet person, so I pay attention to a person's feet. I pay attention to their shoes. I don't know why they didn't even name brand. Just do you take care of your feet? I think that came from my grandma, because my grandma said you only get one set of feet. Take care of your feet, right? So anyway, she was wearing flip-flops and the back of her feet had that thick. And I was like, wait, because don't you be seeing that? Like, I know it's in the back of your feet, but I know don't you lotion your feet or something? So, I just, and then she talk a lot over food, and she smoke, and she do a lot of sniffing and coughing and stuff. And so if we ever have a potluck, first of all, I need to know who brought what. Okay. Need to know who brought what. And then I need to get my food before she do, because she talks over the food. And I've heard her say some things that were like, I don't want nothing from your house. No, ma'am. I don't want nothing. See, some of us need to be a little bit more particular about what's on our plate and who put it there. Because some of the stuff that's on our plate is poisonous, because it came from somebody who God didn't send. But it looks like a good thing. It looks like a good thing, but what it's going to do is it's going to make us busy. And so then we're going to miss God's business. So we have to be real careful. So picking up at 1 Kings 16:29, I'm reading from the NIV version here. Ahab, the son of Omri. See, Omri had passed away, and Omri was regarded as the worst king ever at that time. Okay. And the people picked him. That is something to be said. Okay. That is something to be said. The people picked Saul too. Well, the people said they wanted a king. I'll put it that way. Every time the people open up their mouth, it seems like they made it worse for themselves. But the people wanted Omri. And then the other set of people wanted the guy, I think his name was Titus or something started with a T. They wanted him, so they fought, and the people that wanted Omri won. And so they got King Omri, and he was regarded as the worst king in Israel's history, in the history of kings of Israel. And then when he died, it passed on to his son. See, it's something about your stock. If you're cooking a soup, if the stock ain't right, the soup ain't gonna be right. If your stock is too salty, the soup gonna be salty. Why? Because the vegetables or whatever's in your soup is sitting in the stock and it's soaking up parts of the stock. And what we don't understand is, this is why I tell my relationship clients, find out who they were when they were a child, and you'll know who you unpacking today. Why? Because they sat in the stock. They sat in the stock. And I often say this and people laugh at me, but I say the only way the apple falls far from the tree is if it intentionally rolls. When we fall off the tree, we got to make some movement to be different. Ahab was rotten. He followed right in the footsteps of his daddy, but then, he coupled up with somebody else, and it got worse, baby. It got worse. So it says, Ahab, the son of Omri, became king over Israel in the 38th year of Asa, king of Judah. And Ahab, the son of Omri, reigned over Israel and Samaria for 22 years. Can you imagine somebody wicked and horrible reigning over you for 22 years when you just got finished with the daddy who was horrible too? And I think he might have reigned for, I don't remember how many years. Hold on, let me check, fact check. Omri ruled for 12. So we had 12 years of the daddy. And now here we get with 22 years of the son. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Just beat us down. Why don't you? But that's what you picked. That's what you wanted. Some of us get in relationships. That's what you picked. That's what you wanted. Friendships. That's what you picked. That's what you wanted. So Omri was regarded as the worst king, and then his son came. And it said, Ahab, the son of Omri, ruled over Israel and Samaria for 22 years. Ahab, the son of Omri, did evil in the sight of the Lord more than all the kings who were before him. He took the title from his daddy. It says, and this is the NIV version, it said in verse 31, it came about as if it had been a trivial thing for Ahab to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, that he married Jezebel. So he was already doing foul stuff. But then he came along and married Jezebel, the daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians, and went and served Baal and worshipped him. Oh, okay. So then he didn't just go and serve Baal and worship him for himself. Then he, verse 32, erected an altar for Baal in the house of Baal, which he built in Samaria. Ahab also made the Asherah. Ahab did more to provoke the Lord God of Israel than all of the kings of Israel who were before him. In his days, Hiel, the Bethelite, rebuilt Jericho, and God said that Jericho was not to be rebuilt, and whoever rebuilt Jericho, they would pay with their firstborn and their lastborn. And guess what happened to Hiel, the Bethelite? He laid his foundation. He laid the foundation of Jericho with the loss of his son, his firstborn, and set up its gates with the loss of his youngest son, in accordance to what the Lord has spoken in Joshua. I believe that can be found in Joshua 6 and 26. So now we move into 1 Kings 17. Now, I don't have a slide for that one because it was not my intention to talk about that. It wasn't my intention to talk about that because it's not necessarily talking about Jezebel. I was going to go directly into the traits of Jezebel, and the Lord was like, no, no, no. I need you to tell the people this, and I need you to know this yourself. Now, I won't go line by line, but you can read 1 Kings 17 yourself. But I'll read some of it. I'll read some pieces of it. So when we look at the first, I want to mention a few things from this chapter, and then we'll be on our way. So 1 Kings 17:1 says, now Elijah, remember I'm reading from the NIV, now Elijah the Tishbite, who was of the settlers of Gilead, said to Ahab, remember who he's talking to now, Ahab, as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, before whom I stand, there shall be neither dew nor rain these years except by my word. Now, do you remember what I said when we went back here? What were they doing all of this for? Crops, right? Crops. So they were doing all this open sacrifices, orgies, open sacrifices, and all this worship to Baal and all of this because it was hope. He was the fertility god and all this type of stuff. So it was hopes that they would have crops. But then here we got Elijah saying, ain't gonna be no rain. What? Wait, what? Because we certainly need rain for what? Crops. Wait now. Wait now. Because remember, I told you they ain't had no Sam's Club, no Kroger. See, God will always give us a chance to experience who he is so that we may follow him. He sent his man of God, because remember what Elijah said. Elijah said, as the Lord, the God of Israel, lives. He didn't say nothing about Baal. And remember, Ahab worships who? Baal. He said, as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, before whom I stand. He's saying, in other words, that's who I represent. I represent God, not Baal. I represent God. And I'm telling you, just as sure as my name is Elijah and that God is working through me, that there ain't going to be no dew, ain't going to be no rain, ain't going to be no water up and through these parts. It's going to be a drought, which means all that y'all doing up through in that temple is finna mean nothing. Why? Because God was saying, hear me clearly. This is who I am. I am the God, not who you worshiping. I am the God. God gives us a chance to experience him so that we may follow him. He always sends a prophet before destruction to warn. I remember years ago, I knew nothing about prophecy. Nothing about it. 2009, nothing about prophecy. My family celebrates Kwanzaa. Okay, celebrates Kwanzaa. I knew nothing about prophecy, okay? Didn't even want to know. All I knew was that some people just had a gift to be able to know the future. That's all I knew about it, right? And if you used your, gift for bad, then those were called psychics. That's all we knew about it. That's all we were taught in church. And so my family celebrates Kwanzaa, and we got to the 7th day of Kwanzaa, and God told me to say something before the family, and I didn't want to say it because I had not gone through God's process at that time. It was 2009. I didn't go through my process with God from until 2012 through 2016. And that's when God pruned me and all that. And I was like, what did I do to offend thee? But anyway, God told me there was a building downtown Detroit that was called the J.L. Hudson building. And I used to work downtown, and one particular day they told us, they said, we need you all to get to work extra early. Well, telling me something like that, you got my attention because sis be trying to not be late. Okay, at that time I had to be at work at 9 o'clock, and sis used to be riding the whole 9-12 wave. But okay, so y'all telling us to get to work by 8 o'clock? What? 8:15? What? For what? You know what I'm saying? They said because they're going to blow up the J.L. Hudson building. They're going to demolish it tomorrow. And they want everybody in the buildings and everything by 9 o'clock. And I'm thinking, bro, I need to spend the night because I don't know if let me check my PTO because I don't want to get up an extra hour early. I don't want to be bothered. But anyway, so we did. We got to work early. And my desk, we had one window to the outside in the area, and mine was pointed toward the buildings. So everybody crowding around my desk. So not only am I, I wasn't a morning person, and now I'm here extra stupid early in the morning. Not everybody crowding around my desk, and I'm like, y'all need to go sit down until they tell y'all they finna do it, because don't come over here talking, because some folks talk extra long. So Mr. Griffin was an older man, and Mr. Griffin was standing by me, and so we were just talking, and I said, well, when they gonna do it? Dang. Because I want them to go to their desk. He said, youngin, they already did. Now I'm looking at this building and it's motionless. Nothing's happening with this building. And I'm looking at the building. I'm looking at Mr. Griffin like, yep, he on one. He said, they already blew up the building, youngin. I said, well, ain't nothing happening. He said, oh, it is. He said it's happening inside. They had to implode it because if they blew it up and it go out ways, it would kill people. People who are walking around who ain't paid no attention, who may not know, right? He said, but they imploded, it falls inward. So they have to make it fall inward, but that means they have to blow it up inside first. And so God told me, okay, because my family had elected me to run the Kwanzaa sessions, the discussion sessions. And God told me on the 7th day of Kwanzaa, which is Imani faith, he told me to tell them that our family was imploding like that building. And I didn't want to tell them that. I did not want to tell them that because they already didn't like me, because they felt like I was outspoken and I spoke to too many of the secrets and demons. And I didn't know nothing about no prophecy or nothing like that. But I was just like, okay, I don't want to tell them that. So I decided to oversleep. I decided to oversleep. See, I wasn't no different than Elijah at that time because I was scared of what they would think of me, right? And so I decided to oversleep. So I took me a little nap before the Kwanzaa session and decided to oversleep. And so when I got up, God like, okay, you're going to play in my face, watch this. So when I got up, I figured that they would be done with the discussion session by the time I got there, because this was the day. The 7th day is the day that everybody showed up. There were 2 days of our Kwanzaa celebration that people showed up. They showed up to go bowling, and they showed up for the food. Because see, this was the day when we met at the community center, and this was the day when we had the big dinner. And God said, you're going to say it this day. And I was like, in other words, no, I ain't. And when I walked in the door, they said, oh, there she is. We just getting started. Listen. All of me wanted to run back out the door like, no. So I said it. And you could hear a pin drop. You can hear a mouse tiptoeing on cotton. You could hear, when I say it was like I was speaking Chinese to a Spanish church. 2 people walked up to me. One of them said, cuz I hear what you're saying. I heard what you're saying. And another one said, a prophet always comes before destruction. Didn't know what she meant then. 2 other people walked up to me and they basically told me I talked too much and I talked too long and made them hold the food off too long. What am I saying? God sent a prophet, and guess what happened to my family in the latter years? It did just like that building did, to the point where they had to go get outsiders to sing in the family choir because it wasn't enough people to fill up the family choir. And my family has over 500 people in it. So surely if one 1/10 of the people would have showed up, that would have been enough for the family choir. But hear me clearly, God sent somebody, but because it wasn't who we thought it should be, or because I don't like that person, we won't listen sometimes. But who are we to tell God who to send? So the first point in the 1 Kings 17 is that God will always give us a chance to experience him in such a way that he will lead us to him. That's what he's doing right now. He's giving people a chance to experience who he is. Look at COVID-19. He shook the whole world up. He allowed the entire world to be turned upside down. You can't go out the house. Doctors quitting, nurses quitting, people dropping dead. Why? Because God said, I've had enough. And it ain't going to just impact America. I'll make it go around the world. I'll make the whole world stop. And you know what happened the minute that, quote unquote, God showed a little mercy? We decided that we were going to go back to normal and do business as usual. Don't you understand that business as usual and back to normal is what got being normal is what got us in the issue in the first place? So he always gives us a chance to experience him in such a way that it will draw us to him. But it's still our choice. And he always sends a prophet before destruction to warn. The second point that I want to mention in 1 Kings 17, 2-9 is, and the word of the Lord came to him saying, now after he told Ahab this, Ahab went along his way. And the word of the Lord came to him after that saying, go from here and turn eastward and hide yourself by the brook of Cherith, which is the east of the Jordan River. You shall drink from the brook, and I have commanded the ravens to sustain you there with food, in other words. So he did, he went and did in accordance with the word of God. He went and lived by the brook of Cherith, which is the east of the Jordan. And I'm just going to turn this back here. I don't want to just be sitting on that all the time. And the ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning, and the bread and meat in the evening, and he would drink from the brook. It happened after a while that the brook dried up because there was no rain in the land, like he said, right? He said it wasn't going to be no rain. There wasn't no rain. Then the word of the Lord came to him saying, arise, go to Zarephath, which belongs to Sidon, and stay there. Behold, I have commanded a widow there to provide for you. Here are my second points. God will always provide for his own, even in the midst of famine like Joseph or drought like Elijah. So there's no need to be scared when we hear about famine coming. Be prepared when we hear about famine coming. However, God is a conditional God. See, many of us will say, well, I'm his. You know, he even married to the backslider, so I'm his. No. I mean the one who is obeying him. The one who's doing what he says to do. That one. Because we all belong to him. Okay? He created us all. We all his children. However, I'm talking about in this instance, the ones who are hearkening to the word of God and who are seeking the heart of God, right? And so we have some conditions to follow, though. See, we think that, oh, it's just a blanket across. God gonna take care of us because I went to church all my life. Nope, that ain't it. It is imperative, number one, that we heed to the warnings. When God tells us that it's a famine coming, I don't care if you see it or not, because oftentimes when God tells us it's a famine coming, we'll see feast. He gonna tell us while it's a feast that the famine is coming. He's not going to wait till the famine is there to tell you that the famine coming. You may see feast, but he's telling you famine's coming. Wasn't no rain when Noah started building the ark. Wasn't no flood. What was the flood? Wasn't no flood. They was laughing at him. Look at you. He building a boat. Wasn't no famine when Joseph was in the pit. Wasn't no famine. Wasn't no famine when he was in the pit. When he was at Potiphar's house. When he was in Egypt in the first 7 years. Wasn't no famine. The first 7 years were plentiful. But we got to heed to the warnings. Because if we don't heed to the warnings, God said, I told you. I told you it was going to be a famine. I told you to store up. I told you to stop spending frivolously. I told you. So number one, we have to heed to the warnings. Number two, we have to remain connected to hear continuous instructions. Many of us are sitting in places right now God been told us to leave. But we stop being connected to the one who covers us, who carries us, who leads and guides us. We stop being connected. So we still sitting in the second pew at this church where the brook done dried up. See, and we also have to understand that just because the brook ain't dried up for sister so-and-so sitting next to us, that ain't got nothing to do with the brook drying up for you. Because sometimes what you were there to fulfill, what you were there to do, what you were there to experience may be over. They ain't got nothing to do with her to the left. But because we looking left to right and we feel like, oh, people are still being blessed here. Yeah, that may be true. But this may not be your season anymore to be there. Well, God told me to come here, 15 years ago. Have you checked in with him lately? Some of us hear one set of instructions and stop checking in. But God is a God of process and progress. The way that we make progress in the process is by remaining connected to the vine. When we disconnect from the vine, it's almost like somebody disconnecting a body part or disconnecting something. The blood flow is gone. The flow is gone. When the flow is gone, now you don't hear. Now you don't know what to do. Now you think God ain't speaking. He's speaking. You ain't connected. So point number 2 is remain connected to his continuous instructions. Even with the valley of the dry bones, we done heard that preached 1 gazillion times. But if you notice, he kept going back saying, what now? What, something different? He kept staying in tune. What's the next set of instructions? I was always taught by an older lady, do what God told you to do last till he tell you to do something else. But if you won't ever stay tuned and stay connected to the one who gave you the last set of instructions, then how you gonna get the next set? That's why some of us stuck. Because he didn't give you instructions to move and you ain't heard him. Because you were busy with something that wasn't God's business. And I'm the same. Again, I ain't exempt. Okay. And so the third point is, after we get that next set of instructions, we are to move when and how he says to move, no matter how strange it seems. Did you hear what he told him? Go to the left, up to here, go sit by this, go do that, go from here, turn eastward. God is specific, man. Go from here, turn eastward, hide yourself by the brook Sheriff, which is east of the Jordan River. Drink from the brook. I've commanded the ravens to bring you some food. Do you understand that this very instruction was the matter of life or death for him? He wouldn't have had nothing to eat or drink. And little do we know, a whole lot of our instructions are the same. Whether it's spiritually life or death, physically life or death, mentally life or death, emotionally life or death, financially life or death. But he's telling you, go to the left, go to the right, go up here, go down there. They're going to feed you. Okay, now it's time for you to leave there. Go over here, make this left, make this right. Don't go that way. Don't go this way. Don't go that way. Don't go this way. Don't do that. Don't do that. But you know what? We ain't hear none of that. You know why? Because I'm busy being on the hamster wheel of church work. I'm looking like I'm doing a lot. And ain't nobody said my name. Ain't nobody praised me for what I was. And hear me clearly, all of this ties into Jezebel. You'll see shortly. But God is a God of process and progress. The way that we make progress in the process is by remaining connected to the vine and moving when he says move, no matter how strange it seems. Like I said, Noah was building an ark when there was no rain. Joseph was storing up food in the midst of a feast time. Okay? When we get to 17, the remainder of 17, we see that Elijah went to Zarephath, met the widow, and the widow was preparing what she thought was her last meal because she ain't had no more food. He called out to her and he said, please bring me a little water in a jar. Now, up until this time, the angel even gave him, they made sure he was sustained so that when he had to go different places, he had the energy to get there. So God was even doing that for him through this time. Well, because I just told you the ravens were bringing him food and he was drinking from the brook. And when the brook dried up, God sent him to the next place to eat or the next place to have what he needed. So when he got to where the lady was, Zarephath, he said, bring me a little water in a jar so I may drink it. And she said, and he said, can you bring me a piece of bread? She said, look here. I ain't got no bread. All I got is a handful of flour in this bowl and a little oil in this jar. And, I was gathering a few sticks so I may go in and bake this for me and my son, because they ain't had no more food. So she said it was gonna be their last meal and die. And Elijah, somebody she ain't never seen before, and probably after this ain't never seen no more, told her, do not fear. Go and do as you have said. Just make me a little bread from it first. Now let me stop right there and ask you, are you, because I had to ask myself this too, are you connected enough in God, first of all, to recognize the God in the man of God, to know when it's God speaking? Second of all, to make him some bread first when this is all you got. Some of us like, no. But listen to what he said to her. Listen, he said, do not fear. Go and do as you have said. Just make me a little bread from it first and bring it out to me. And afterward, you may make one for yourself and for your son. For this is what the Lord God of Israel says. The bowl of flour shall not be exhausted, nor shall the jar of oil be empty until the day that the Lord sends rain again on the face of the earth. She went and did what he said. See, we have to move when God says move and do what he says to do, even if it's weird, because it had to be super weird for her to get for this man to show up. She ain't got no food. Okay. Little bowl of flour, a little bit of oil. I'm finna make this bread with some sticks for my son. Okay. And she had already prepared it in her mind. They weren't going to have nothing else. They was getting ready to die. This man shows up and he asked me to make him something first. But do you understand that because of her obedience, her and her son lived? It was life or death. She went and did as Elijah said, and she and he and her household. She and he and her household. Do you understand that there are some times when God will call us to do a thing, and when we're obedient, not only will we be blessed, but our household. She and he and her household ate for many days. The bowl of flour was not exhausted. Can you imagine having a bowl? It didn't say a jar. It didn't say a well. It didn't say a trough. It said a bowl, and the bowl is never running dry. And I know I ain't put nothing but a cup of flour in there, and we still eating. How? Nothing but the grace of God. Remember, I said God will always show you him and let you experience him in a way that you can't deny him so that you can choose him. And if you don't choose him, then that may just be the time that he says, enough is enough. We can't keep playing in his face. She went and did what he said. She obeyed. She recognized the God in him and she obeyed, and she did. And as a result of her obeying, she and he and her household ate for many days. The bowl of flour was not exhausted, nor did the jar of oil become empty, in accordance with the word of God that he spoke through Elijah. I don't care what Elijah looked like. He could have been tangled-eyed like Leah. I don't care what he looked like. He could have had an arm full of tattoos. But we have to recognize the word of God coming out of the mouth of the servant of God. We can't get caught up in what they should look like or who we should send. When God anoints somebody, if he didn't call us to a conference call to say, you think they look right? A young lady was talking about an unmarried woman can't tell a married woman nothing. How you know that woman been unmarried her whole life? You don't know who God is sending. And many of us will miss the boat because it's not a yacht. Because we see my Lord, my God, has a thousand of cattle on 1,000 hills. He wouldn't send me a kayak. Yes, he would. Because you're drowning. And if the point is for you not to die in the water, he sent you a boat. You prayed for a boat, you got a kayak. You prayed for a boat, you got a sailboat. You prayed for a boat, he sent you a pallet with a motor. And you looking like, what is this? What is it? Who made this? You looking like, what is this? Even if you went under, he sent you a submarine because he said, I got you. But because it was not a yacht with 5-star service on it, because see, my God, no, we don't get to dictate who he gonna send. But we surely will miss our blessings if we don't recognize him in that person. That's why the Bible says, try the spirit to see if it's of God. It don't say try the spirit by the spirit. Try the spirit to see if it's of God. Why? Because sometimes the person coming wasn't going to look like God sent them. Sometimes the person who decided to obey God and do his will wasn't going to look like, she wasn't going to have on stockings. She might not have this. She might not have that. She might not have a husband, but she has a heart of God. And I don't know about you, but if you look around, it's a little shortage on the people who really are seeking the heart of God instead of the hand of God. So do you think God is going to say, well, I can't use them because they don't look right? If they heart right, come on. So be careful that we're not judging people and mess around and miss what God has sent, miss the answer to our prayers. And so Elijah's with this, staying with this woman. And it happened that after that, the son of that woman got sick, so sick that the breath left him. And she said to Elijah, What is the problem between me and you, O man of God? Have you come to bring my sin to my mind and to put my son to death? He told her, give me your son. Then he took him up to a room where he was living. Point of information. We always want our home to be a place where the Spirit of God can dwell. Did you hear up to the upper room where he was living? The Spirit of God should be able to come and dwell in our house. It should be able to dwell in our house. It should feel comfortable enough to dwell in our home, not for a visitation, but a habitation. See, we're settling for a visitation of God when we can have a habitation of God, but we got to clean up some stuff. It's some stuff God said, I can't stay here. I can't stay here. I come by here, but I can't stay here. I can't stay here. See, there are some people that we can visit, but we like, I wouldn't be able to stay here. I might be able to visit, but I can't stay here though. Why? Because there's some stuff going on here. That's the same thing God's saying. Some stuff going on here. For me to stay here and live, for me to visit is one thing, but for me to stay here, oh, some other stuff got to change. And so he took him up to the upper room and he prayed. You know, he talked to the Lord. He called to the Lord and he said, oh Lord, my God, have you brought further tragedy to the lady, to the widow, by causing her son to die? Because she barely could feed her and him when I got here. Okay? You know, I'm ad-libbing and you know, so don't be tripping. You're like, where is that in my Bible? But he did say the part about, oh Lord, my God, please let this child's life return to him. He said, you brought further tragedy to the widow with whom I'm staying by causing her son to die. Then he stretched out himself upon the child 3 times. He laid on him and he called to the God and said, oh Lord, my God, please let this child's life return to him. The Lord heard the voice of Elijah and the life of the child returned to him and he revived. What if he wouldn't have went to Zarephath? What if she wouldn't have made him the bread? What if she wouldn't have obeyed? What if he wouldn't have obeyed? He would have even been there. Maybe her and the baby would have been dead because they wouldn't have ate. But if not, surely the child would have been dead. The Lord heard the voice of Elijah and the life of the child returned to him and he revived. Elijah took the child and brought him down from the upper room into the lower part of the house and gave him to the mother and said, see, your son is alive. There are some things that God want to present to us and say, see, it's alive. That dream you thought was dead, it's alive. That hope that you no longer have, it's alive. God wants to restore, but first we have to release. There's some things that we have to release to him, and there's some things that we have to release to the kingdom of darkness. We have to release it so that he can restore, because he said, I got some stuff that I want to present to you to show you that it's alive. It's not dead. It's not dead. It's alive. But if you don't do what I tell you to do, then I can't. If you don't release what or who I tell you to release, then I can't. I won't. Because he can do anything. I won't. Then the woman said to Elijah, now I know. See, before she thought, now I know that you are a man of God and that the word of the Lord in your mouth is truth. Here's the thing, sis, you should have knew that when that flower. Okay. But guess what? She is I, she is you, because sometimes it takes the Lord 11 times. Why? Because we've seen so much bad, so much darkness, so much has been in our ears and eyes that we like, God, give me one more sign. Give me one more sign. Can you tell me one more time? When the bowl kept filling up, sis, you ain't have nothing but a cup of flour and you ate all that time and you still talking about you know now. Well, sometimes it takes us that. We're human. But the point here is God will equip you for the journey ahead, because here's where it comes back to Jezebel. God knew that Elijah would need the faith. He would need this faith. He would need this faith to know this is the God you serve, that you can lay on top of a baby. Sir, that's the oxymoron. When if you lay on top of a child, ain't you squeezing the life out of him? No, he laid on top of a child and brought the life back. He ate out of a bowl of flour that should have been gone. God was showing himself not just to that lady, but to Elijah too. Why? Because you're getting ready to go and deal with Jezebel. And I need you to remember who you serve when you do. God will equip us for the journey ahead. He knew that Elijah would need to have great faith and to remember who he was serving when he dealt with Jezebel. He knew it. Okay? And so this is where we're going to stop. And that's because we're going to talk about, we covered chapter 18 last week with Obadiah and Mount Carmel. Go back and read that if you did not read that. But we're going to go to 19, to 1 Kings 19, where Elijah flees from Jezebel. The same Elijah who just laid on a baby, going to flee from Jezebel. And we're going to get deeper into that because I don't want to start it and then have to break from it because I try not to, last for so long. So we're going to start with chapter 19, and then we're going to get into some traits of Jezebel. If the Lord say the same, we're going to get into some traits of Jezebel. Okay, so we're going to stop here. We'll start with 19, Lord's will, next week, and then we'll get into the traits of Jezebel. Okay, so let me stop the recording.